Hi guys, I hope you had a good lunch. We'll be starting our next session now. We'll start with a talk on greasing the wheels of the internet economy with Fahd Batayneh. I'd like to invite him on stage. All right, let's hear it.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch. So actually, since morning, everybody has been talking about all these entrepreneurship exciting projects. And I think there was one thing that was common amongst all of them, and that was the internet. So they're all using, I guess, the internet to kind of enhance the services they provide in one way or another. So my name is Fahd Batayneh. I work for ICANN, and I'll explain to you in a while what ICANN does. So ICANN is an abbreviation for the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. We literally work on three main topics. So one is domain names, and I guess the majority of the entrepreneurs, if not all, actually have a domain name. IP addresses, which is the numbering aspects, and there are two different versions of IP addressing. One is version 4 and one is version 6. And then there is protocol parameter. And when we talk about protocol parameter, it's the unified sets of protocols that actually manage to interact with one another so that wherever we are in the world, the internet is operable and people can communicate through it. Of course, our slogan at ICANN is a one world, one internet. So we believe that it's not in the interest of anybody if we have fragmented internet, an internet where probably intranets, so maybe Lebanon could have an internet, China could have an internet, and these two different internets cannot communicate with one another. So a couple of quick statistics on the internet. In 2000, we were only 500 million internet users. In 2014, that jumped to sixfold, and we are 3 billion internet users. It is expected in 2020 that we actually become 5 billion internet users. Now, in terms of internet traffic, in 2000, it was 10 megabytes. In 2013, it was 5 gigabytes. And in 2018, it's expected to become 14 gigabytes. In terms of international internet bandwidth, in 2018, it was 14 terabytes, and last year, it almost jumped to like tenfold. It's 137 terabytes. That is a lot of data being exchanged over the internet. Now, as I said earlier, ICANN's slogan is a one world, one internet. And of course, since we live at hard times where we just came out of a financial recession in 2008, and the economy is kind of not as strong as one would have expected it to be. ICANN commissioned the Boston Consulting Group, and I think many of you know what the Boston Consulting Group is, to actually conduct a study, which we agreed to call Greasing the Wheels of the Internet Economy. So in a nutshell, the report talks about how to utilize the internet, or how to better utilize the internet to actually improve economies. So when the study was conducted and the outcomes came out, the researchers concluded that there were 4 main issues that caused friction. And I'll just halt for a second here and just define friction. So if we go back to basic physics, friction is actually a force that kind of hampers or slows down your advancement forward. So now when we talk about the internet and utilizing the internet for e-commerce and online business, there are frictions that actually hamper the smooth flow moving forward. So the study actually concluded that 50% of the issues that contributed to friction were actually related to infrastructure. And when we talk about infrastructure, maybe we can talk about fiber optic cables, C cables, internet exchange points, various access points. And now the remaining 50% were actually distributed almost more or less equally amongst 3 other factors: industry, information, and individuals. Now when we talk about industries, not all industries actually utilize the internet to actually promote their business. And so you would find issues such as lack of usage of the internet. You can find issues related to lack of awareness amongst the employees within a company that they are not aware of the benefits of the internet. And then another factor is actually the individual. So when we talk about the individual, it's really more or less the behavior of people online. So let's say I have an option of doing my shopping online versus doing my shopping physically. So it's more maybe of a culture, maybe it's something related to the fact that I need to feel the exchange of money versus products when I do my transaction. So I come from Jordan, and when I speak to people about e-commerce, some of the folks would just say, I'm quite used to feeling physical money versus actually doing my payments online using a credit card or a debit card or whatever. And the other aspect that causes a lot of friction online or on the internet is actually information. And when we talk about information, we're really talking mostly about local content. So while the Arabic language is one of the most spoken languages on earth, Arabic content fails immensely. It just lags behind. It would be surprising actually to many of you that Denmark is actually the most country in the world that actually develops online content. And Denmark is, okay, it's a big country, but it doesn't have as much of a population as the Arab world. And in fact, the content developed in Denmark is more than the content developed in all the Arabic-speaking countries. Now, at the end of my presentation, I will share with you the link to the report for those of you who are interested. And actually, if you go back to the report, you will find 55 different indicators explaining these various 4I friction items. As I mentioned, internet exchange points, sea cables, fiber optic cables, local content, etc., etc. Now, when the report was conducted, the Boston Consulting Group actually took 65 countries as a sample for its study. And of course, when they chose the 65 countries, they chose it based on several indicators, such as the strength of economy in their region, the GDP per capita, exports. I mean, there were various aspects to choosing these countries. Lebanon, unfortunately, was one of those countries that did not appear in the study. So of the 65 countries, this graph actually shows the top 39 countries. And actually, if you see, there are 3 different quintiles, and each quintile actually represents 13 countries. So there are 3 Arabic countries, or countries from the MENA region, that are in the report. So we have Qatar, which is actually the topmost country in terms of less friction online. And then comes the United Arab Emirates, and then Bahrain. And this is the top 39 countries. Now, of course, the same study has an appendix where it shows you the breakdown of each country and what are the main sources of friction. One of the interesting things, actually, I found in the report, and I actually did a reread of it yesterday when I was flying from Amman to here. South Korea is the most country with internet users, so I think 97% of Koreans are online. They have one of the best infrastructures in the world. They have an amazing fiber optic network. They have a good access to sea cables. So on the infrastructure side, they're doing very well, and they're #1. But when it comes to the other 3 I's, which is the individual and information and industry, they do really poor. And that is why you will see that actually South Korea comes right after the United Arab Emirates, even though it's the most country that accesses the internet, 97%. Now this graph actually is mostly for politicians. And actually, if you can see the line that crosses through these green dots, this is actually the average in terms of e-friction score versus digital economy. And mind you, this is just for the digital economy. Now, when we compare, and the graph actually has two horizontal lines. One says the top quintile e-friction, and the other one says the bottom quintile e-friction. And the difference actually between these two is 2.5% increase in GDP. In other words, countries that have less friction, or let's say countries that move towards having less friction on the internet, can actually increase their GDP by 2.5%. And that is a significant growth. Now, one of the interesting pieces of information on this graph is that the United Kingdom sits right at the top all alone. It seems that the British tend to have more faith in actually doing e-commerce and doing transactions online. On the other hand, if you look at the bottom left, you will find countries like Egypt, India, China, Indonesia, and others who are actually suffering with high friction, and thus their chances of actually increasing their GDP is quite good. Now, if you look at the top of the graph, it says greater than 3.2 billion unconnected people. So actually, the countries that appear on the bottom left of the graph are the countries that have 3.2 billion inhabitants who are still not online. So running some quick statistics, we live in a world of 7 billion people. 3 billion are online, 4 billion are offline, or are not connected to the internet yet, or have not used the internet yet. So these countries here, South Africa, Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, China, Egypt, and Indonesia, combiningly actually have 3.2 billion of their inhabitants who are not connected. Another interesting graph, and this is for SMEs, especially for the SMEs in the room. So what the Boston Consulting Group did is that they took a sample group of 3,250 SMEs from 11 different countries. And when you look at the countries chosen, you have countries from Sweden, which scored extremely well on this report, to countries like India, which have high friction. And when they sampled these SMEs in these countries, they realized that SMEs who use the internet heavily tend to have a gain of 18% in their revenue versus 11% for those who actually use the internet medium to light usage. So there is a difference of 7%. In other words, in plain English, I'm a simple business. If I use the internet extensively, I have a chance of actually increasing my revenue by 7% versus if I actually use the internet moderately or lowly. Now, the way forward. So, looking at all these e-friction factors and all the issues that are related to the friction online, there are several key issues that have to be dealt with. So some of these issues can actually be resolved by us as internet users, as business people, and some actually can be resolved by our governments. So one thing to note is that low e-friction could contribute positively to the GDP per capita, and that is good. Now, it so happens that sometimes in big countries, connection amongst the entire nation is quite hard. So actually connecting Lebanon is probably much easier than connecting Saudi Arabia, since Saudi Arabia has a more diverse geography. And so in Saudi Arabia, the politicians need to come out with intelligent solutions to ensure that they are actually able to connect as many people as possible in the least cost-effective means. Now, ICT literacy is an important aspect. So many people who still don't use the internet, we might want to educate them on how to use the internet, and that probably could open up their minds for more ideas. And this is mostly for the industry people. Local content. So the region lacks local content. There is not much local content in this region. And local content can actually contribute to reducing friction online. SMEs are definitely encouraged to use the internet more. And actually one of the findings of this report was that actually SMEs who use the internet extensively have the ability to access markets outside of their region by a 50% margin. So in other words, it becomes 50% easier for you to actually access markets outside of your region by extensively using the internet. And finally, encouraging multi-stakeholder policy making. And when we talk about multi-stakeholders, it's not just the governments who make policies. If you go to the developed world, actually who build the policies? Government is one part of it, but then there are other parts who actually develop these policies. So you have the business folks, you have civil society, and you also have the technical and academic sector. Now, as I mentioned to you earlier, this is the link to the BCG report. You'll find the report itself, and you'll also find an appendix which shows a breakdown of the different countries. And questions? It was either boring, or I spoke too fast, or you're just astonished. I'm not sure. I don't think it's astonished, really.
Okay.
I really can't hear you. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. This one? Okay.
There is question. No, but he just...
Any questions?
Okay.
Well, thank you for listening.